say I didn't warn you.
Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to a special podcast talking about the disaster of all the creatures that has haunted us in Lethal Company. We're going to be talking about how we like them, how scary they are, how annoying they are, and the funniest moments where we died. I'm your host, Renegade Operative, and of course, we are introducing Ren Ben.
Hey everybody, I'm Ren Ben. I'm a variety streamer on Twitch.
It's nice to have you. We always play Lethal together when we can in the IAS, and it leads to some very funny moments. So that might be a shameless plug, but you can see all that on the channel as we die in the worst possible ways. Next up is Mr. Austin. Introduce yourself.
Hello, I go by Cool Austin DT on my YouTube channel. That's it.
And he also plays Lethal with us, where we die in the worst possible ways. Again, I'm going to be saying that a lot, actually.
Or in the most stupid ways.
Or in the funniest ways, at the bottom of a giant, but that's besides
Or all
the point.
three.
Yeah, all three can count too. And we have a guest here for our first time for the IAS. We have a guest. His name is Call Me CJ. CJ, introduce yourself.
Hello, Infinite Ammo Syndicate audience. I am Call Me CJ. Thus, again, please call me CJ. I am a slowly growing variety streamer on Twitch, where everything I do either is a music game or is either focused on something where incredible music is a part of it. Feel free to come on in, enjoy the good vibes, me rambling about some kind of nonsense, and really mediocre gameplay, unless it is one of like 3 or 4 rhythm games that I play way too much.
Did you follow that train?
And of course, someone makes the damn show.
I was just
Someone
waiting
had
for
to.
Yep, go ahead. Get the San Andreas stuff out of your system. I did not get this name from San Andreas. It is the like 7th iteration of like my first ever username back when I first joined the internet as a whole in the early 2000s. I went by Code Junkie then, and it's been a long train, a lot of iteration and changing of it until we got to Call Me CJ, which is where I've been for about 4 years now.
I should have let off with that. All you had to do was follow the damn train, CJ. I should have let off with that so hard.
Might as well peel that band-aid.
Yep. To be fair, it's actually been a while since someone has made that joke at me, so it did kind of stunlock me for half a second there, but we got through it.
Yeah,
Oh, no.
I noticed the pause.
Don't worry.
I like that you said stunlock.
You could hear the gears turning when he realized what happened.
Genuinely, yeah, it did kind of catch me off guard a little bit.
But we're gonna start this thing. We're gonna light this candle and jump into the monsters. So the first one is going to be off the wiki once again, and the first entity is the baboon hawk. We're gonna be describing how cool they look, the scare factor, annoyance factor, and funniest moment of how you die. And if you barely encountered them or had any interaction with them whatsoever, you can opt out of certain parts of this question. It makes it easier, and it makes the podcast flow a little bit faster. CJ, since you're first in alphabetical order on Discord, we're gonna start with you first. What do you think of the baboon hawk and the order of that format?
I will have to pass. I think encountered them twice so far. Like, I've just been really either you can see it lucky or unlucky that I've seen some baboon hawks like kind of off in the distance, but I've never had to like really encounter them, so to speak.
Okay, that's fair enough. Austin, how about you? What do you think of the baboon hawk and Lethal Company?
I think I might have encountered them before, but they usually just kept their distance, and I've never really had to worry about them, honestly. At most, it just kind of freaked me out a little bit, but we just don't really care about it, so
Okay.
yeah, I'll just have to skip because I have like almost no experience with it.
Okay, I guess I'll go next. In the order of how they look, I would say it's a creepy looking thing. I'm not gonna lie, it's kind of weird. I have not encountered them that much. Apparently they spawn a lot on the new planet, and they also spawn a lot on March as well. In terms of seeing them, I think I was only attacked by them one time, but I managed to relatively get away. So because of escaping, I can't say my scare factor is way too high if I was not in danger of being killed by one. Neither can I say the annoyance factor applies as well, because it's like one of those things where it's like they did not even catch up to me whatsoever. It was just a little swipe and that was it. And I have not died to them either way. So in terms of encountering them that much, I'm gonna have to also say the other factors really don't apply. Next, we're gonna go with Ren Ben. Did you run into these things or no?
I've run into them a whole bunch lately. Particularly now that you mention it on adamants. And I always see, because they always seem to pop up if there's an eclipse. Like, I like to run it where I spin a wheel, and we have to, my friends and I, when we play, we go to whatever moon the spinner has landed on, regardless of the weather. And so if you get adamants when it's eclipse, not only are you going to encounter the hawk, but you're going to encounter like a whole bunch of them. And they like it when they outnumber the number of players. That's when they attack. Otherwise, they kind of just leave you alone. But they're really good at jump scaring me.
On a scale of like 1 to 10, how annoying are they?
I would probably give them like a 5 or a 6. They're not terribly annoying because you can get away from them. If you get far enough away from them, then they lose interest in you. But if you happen to stumble into the area where they are, then you're in trouble, unless you can get away quick. But oftentimes, like the last time I encountered them, I got stuck between them and a giant. So you can imagine how that went.
She just got turned into like a strawberry sundae. It's just like,
pretty much.
That's the worst feeling in the world, getting like caught by 2 monsters and killed. Now the next creature everyone has seen, I'm pretty sure everyone has a story behind it, and it is the Bracken.
Oh boy.
Good old Freddy Fazbear.
I'm calling him that from now on.
Oh my god, just put a skin on him with a mod. I'm pretty sure you won't miss it there. But now we're gonna go in order with the Bracken. Tell me your experience, CJ. What do you think of them?
He's a bastard. He has stolen my shoes more times than not. I have tried to do my own version of the "give him back" several times when they've taken my friends, only for me to immediately fall into a hole and die. And then obviously I then get clowned on in the dead people voice chat that shows up after. And I honestly fucking deserve it, because sometimes I just try to do stuff that I am not capable of doing.
What about you, Austin? Any stories, history with the great
Honestly,
fear Bracken?
I've honestly never actually died to it. I've run into him quite a few times, but he's always like backed away from me. Probably the most memorable experience I had with him was, I think we were trying out the Brutal Company mod, and I just went to check out the fire exit, and not only did I see a bunch of landmines everywhere, I saw the bracket down there as well. He backed away from me, and honestly, I just left. I did not want to deal with that. So yeah, it was definitely a experience, that's for sure, but I've never had any issue with him.
Okay, so everyone knows I've ran into these things like several hundred times. I'm gonna start with like how cool they look. So they look like these weird plant men, and it kind of gave me some vibes of like a more mutated plant creature from RE2 remake. It kind of looks like that, big like bulbous leaves all over it, and the eyes in the dark. Oh my god, dude. When I saw that in the mansion area, I was just like, what the fuck is that? And why is it moving slowly closer to me? I would say the scare factor in dark environments with the eyes is indeed a 10. And if you're turned behind, the Bracken is obviously going to kill you, which has happened to me several times before. I always get captured by them, or my friends get captured by them when they're really close. They have this weird, like, sort of, they'll back off, then they'll approach you, then they'll back off and approach you, and it's hard to really tell when they aggro. Apparently there's a video maker out there where he makes videos on this, and they aggro if you're still in their line of sight for like more than 10 seconds. So it's a pretty scary creature, and of course, if it gets close, it's gonna one-shot you. You can kill it. I've never seen a bracken killed. If anyone has like evidence of this, I'm sure, please show me, because every fucking time I try to swing the shovel at it, I just die. So I would say their annoyance factor is definitely a 9. Scare factor is a 10, especially in dark environments. And the funniest moment I died was when one of the creatures carried Tolkien away, and she didn't see it right there, and I kept trying to say, look, it's to the side of you, to the right, it's a bracken. He came out of nowhere, and then he just took Tolkien like she was a football. So I was like okay, then he just dragged people away just like that out of the ship. So that scared that scared the unholy god out of me. Ren Ben. Oh, you go ahead. You're
saying, operative, quick question.
Go ahead.
Have you ever actually managed to rescue a body from the bracken room?
I have not. I know from the experience I've seen, it drags the body to a predetermined location and drops it. It doesn't keep the body forever, quite to the contrary of what people said. It takes it somewhere, drops it, and then it tries to stay in the same area as the body, which is why people have complained and said, oh, why is the bracken like over here while I'm trying to get someone to collect and put them back on the ship? That's why, because they stay in the same area for like a little bit of time.
So they don't actually take them to the legitimate bracken room that spawns?
No. They take them to a random predetermined location, and then they drop the body from there, which is what I heard. I could be wrong. You can correct me in the comments if I am, but from what I heard extensively, they take them somewhere so they can get other players, and then they swarm the body, so when you try to pick them up, you'll get attacked, and that's the first thing they try to do.
Huh. That is news to me.
Ren Ben, how about you? What do you think of this terrifying creature in Lethal Company?
The number of times that a bracken has snapped my neck in this game. I agree with what you said. I do agree with your ratings as well. Like, they are terrifying to just see those eyes glowing in the dark. And there's one time I can remember, it actually wasn't in the dark, but I was playing with some friends, and one person all of a sudden just started going, what was that? What is that? What is that? And I turned around just in time. Like, you would not believe how fast these things can move too. Like, he just shot right across, and the next thing I knew, I was like, oh okay, bracken got me. Yeah, they move fast, they're scary. The design is really cool on them. The first time I saw them, I didn't realize they just give you a nice hug and snap your neck. I thought they were gonna like stab you with their spines. But yeah, I think they're probably one of my favorite monsters in the game, because they're really cool, and the scare factor is pretty high with them. I don't find them terribly annoying, only because I've gotten more used to how to know, like, you just stare at them just long enough that they back away, and then you can also back away, but you got to make sure they get out of eyesight first. But yeah, I do like brackens, but I do agree they are probably one of the scarier monsters in the game.
And absolutely nobody is attracted to them.
That notion scares
Totally.
me. That scares me.
Category?
I
add another category?
I don't think we should. I think we should move on to the next creature.
Top 10 hottest Lethal Company monsters.
Oh my god! Why?
There you go. There's a new podcast idea for you.
Oh,
yeah, we
please
can
no.
make a tier list.
Please, God, no. I swear, we don't need to get demonetized.
Smash or pass.
Smash or pass.
Back in number 1 Hydra Gear, I have taken no.
Okay. The next one is a monster I think I've seen like occasionally, but it is the bunker spider. We're gonna go with CJ again. What do you think of this creature in particular?
They are a bastard of the highest order, and that is all I will say on that matter.
I have a lot to say, but I'm gonna wait my turn. Is that it? CJ, like, no scare factor, funniest moment you die, annoyance factor?
I said it. I said it. They are a bastard, and no further comment.
You know what? We'll go with that. Austin, what about you? Any experience with the bunker spiders?
Oh, I've definitely had my fair share of experience with they're not as scary as I used to think they were. They kind of work like bees in a way where like you don't mess with them, they won't mess with you mostly, but I've definitely died to it a couple times. The most notorious death I had is when I first played it with y'all, where I saw the spider and I was immediately freaking out because I saw a big ass spider and that made me scared. But it didn't kill me. Instead, I ran straight to a landmine and that killed me. And I didn't even know that was killed by a landmine until I saw your recording. So that's definitely something I can't live down. If I had to say like the fear factor, it's probably around a 5. It's not too intimidating once I know how they work. And in terms of annoyance, I guess like about a 4. Honestly, they're like I said, they only really bother you if you bother them. So yeah.
Okay, so as far as I know, because I'm very eager to sort of like discuss this, but uh I remember seeing them when there's a lot of webs around. There's like webs all over the cave and whatnot, or the area or the interior. You step on one, spider gets alerted, comes your direction, tries to kill you. Now I've gotten really good at jumping around the webs to make sure there's no alert, unless one is behind me, which means the scare factor can increase to like I want to say a 5 to about an 8 of shitting my pants, depending on the situation. So I had that happen before. Are they really scary? Yes, they are. Can they be really annoying? I would say that kind of depends on the situation. I've outrun like many of them before, so I think the annoyance factor would be probably like lower in that regard, maybe like a 4 or a 5. In terms of how they look, I mean, it's just a big ass spider is what you would expect. I mean, I see a dime a dozen of these in Devour, so it's no different in this game. So they're not the most like unique thing in the world, but hey, I mean, it's a spider in the game, so that's always going to be something that's like memorable to say the least. And I don't have a moment where I died to them. Actually, I don't think I ever died to this enemy. Just I got trapped in a corner a couple of times and jumped over them, but you can easily get around them in certain instances. So no funniest death yet to recall with them. Ren Ben, how about you? You have any moments with this menace of an arachnid?
I would agree with a lot of the things you guys have said so far. I don't find them as scary. I find that this is one of the more annoying monsters to me because, as you mentioned, Ren, like they love to just put their webs everywhere. And sometimes like you can jump over them, and sometimes you jump over them and you're like, oh shit, I'm gonna land into more webs. And you land into more webs and then you die. So I would say that the annoyance factor is a lot higher with the spider than the scare factor. I will also say I have the arachnophobia mode turned on, which makes it actually more funny to me than scary, only because there's nothing funnier than to hear the galloping noise of the spider and all you see is a big red word spider coming at you, which, by the way, kudos to the devs for putting that in there, because otherwise I don't think I'd be able to play this game. As for funny deaths, I had one a couple of weeks ago playing with some friends, and we were messing around with a friend who'd been killed by the spider, and so they'd been wrapped up in the web, and we were trying to get the body to come down, and we thought you just hit it with the shovel. So we're hitting our friend with the shovel. We're hitting our dead friend with the shovel.
Oh my god, violence.
We thought it was hilarious, and then I turn around and the next thing I know, the spider got me, and I have not screamed that loud from a spider attack in that game ever. Like, it just came out of nowhere, and it was the funniest thing ever, because we were like, let's get our friend down, and we're like, oh, okay, we can't get her down. We turn around and all of a sudden, ah! So it was great.
Spider-Man didn't wanna, yeah, it was good. It was kind of karma, like that was just kind of coming around the corner, I'm not gonna lie.
Oh yeah, I was definitely the one hitting her the most with the shovel. So I
Yes,
definitely got my karmic retribution for that.
Yes, you definitely low-key deserve that.
when it wraps people in webs, I think you can carry the body back, because I've seen someone do that before. So it's one of those little weird situations where it's one of the enemies that affect the environment and the players at the same time, which I also like thoroughly appreciate as well. It's always nice to see like these attention to details. But the next one is a newer enemy, so I'm automatically gonna skip this one. This is the Butler, which was introduced in the new update for Lethal Company. CJ, did you see the Butler anywhere around?
I have not gone to play Little Company at all since the latest update, so no.
All right, how about you, Austin? Have you seen the Butler anywhere around the environment?
Honestly, no. This is also a new one to me. He honestly kind of looks like one of those like his face kind of reminds me of those blobfish or whatever. You know, the ones that are just like those ones that look like little deflated faces.
It's like a blobfish on a man's body after he ate like 50,000 steaks. It's a very weird enemy, especially when he dies, which I think Remnant Ben's gonna kind of talk about. But I think you're the only one that experienced this enemy. So what is your experience on him?
So first off, the blobfish description is spot on.
Looking at them, 100%. Yeah.
It also vaguely reminds me of the guy who got killed by the hornets stinging him in Resident Evil Remake, where you go and you get the bug spray from him. Kind of reminds me of that guy's face too. But anyways, yes, I've encountered the Butler multiple times now. He's not bad as long as you have somebody else with you. He will not attack unless you are by yourself. Otherwise, he's just minds his own business. He will set off landmines. He will just wreak havoc by existing in the area. He's not that bad until I would say, unless he dies. He's actually a lot worse when he dies, because that's when he turns into the mask hornets. He explodes into hornets, and the mask hornets don't die. They will just keep pursuing you until you die. But like one time we got trapped in a room and a nutcracker came in, there were 6 butlers in this room. And a nutcracker killed all of them, so then it was 6 swarms of mask hornets in the room. We were playing Brutal Company, but still, it was, I actually like the Butler. I think it's kind of a cool design in that I also like that, he doesn't attack unless you're by yourself. He can also like kind of set things off, which does help a lot. He's not really annoying. I would put his annoyance factor very low, because you can just walk right up to him if you're there with a friend. He's not terribly scary, except for he will just kind of come out of nowhere, just like the normal jump scare factor. So I would probably put his scare factor at like a 3 or a 4, and annoyance at like a 2 or a 3, unless he explodes into mask hornets, and in which case it goes right up to a 10, because those things will not leave you alone until you die.
I've seen someone kill like, what is it? They killed 3 butlers, and I could imagine the hornets are. So is it like individual when they explode? The hornets are everywhere and they chase you all over the place in multitude. Okay, that sounds very, very bad in my opinion.
That's when you become Nicolas Cage.
Not the bees! Where are my eyes?
The number of times I have screamed, "Not the bees! Anything but the bees!" when I've been playing this game.
Actually, looking into it, the mask hornets are basically the exact same entity as circuit bees. They just spawn indoors instead of outdoors.
They're worse, trust me. They're worse.
They sound worse because you're in a much more enclosed space.
Oh yeah, obviously, but I'm just saying that like at the game, at like the engine level, they're basically the exact same entity.
Well, I guess we're gonna move on to a very common enemy that we've seen throughout the experience of Lethal Company, and that is the coal head. So I'm going to go with CJ again. Have you encountered the coal head, and what do you think about him?
I'm sorry, coal head?
Coil head.
Thank you. I'm sorry, but that that just got. Yes, I've seen the coil head so many goddamn times. They are like, first, points to referencing SCP, which is one of the coolest things of fiction in all the internet. They are more annoying than scary, except when you have multiple of them, because then they become absolutely terrifying because you need more than one person to be able to actually handle it. God forbid that you find one when you're alone, because at that point you may as well just start waving the white flag and turn you around willingly. There's no way in hell you're getting out.
Austin, what about you? It's your turn. What do you think of the coal hat?
They are honestly pretty intimidating. I've never really died to them, but they definitely are one of the freakier ones in my opinion. I would probably say like they are around a 8 in terms of like fear, because like all it takes is one mistake and you're just gone, especially if you're alone. And if you're alone, it is definitely like pretty annoying. I would say around a 7, because unless someone comes in, you're basically doomed. Like unless you're like able to get right into the door and just leave. But honestly, I've never really died to them. The only death I had that involved them in the room with me was when we were at the mansion, and I believe there was the slime enemy and one of the acid spitting enemies that were also in the room. So I was basically boned, but despite that, the only thing that killed me in that room was a turret. So there you go.
That's impressive.
What do you think of their annoyance factor or scare factor?
I would say, like, in terms of scare factor, they're definitely around an 8. And in terms of them being annoying, like, if you're alone, they're definitely like an 8. But when you have someone with you, it's only about, like, I guess, like a 3 or a 4. So yeah, they're definitely one of the more terrifying ones, in my opinion.
It depends on who's. It depends. Like I wouldn't say they're annoying. Without
Yeah,
like if you're just by yourself, like they're definitely annoying if they're like multiple coal heads around, trying to chase you. I've seen like 4 of them, and just to have one person sort of watch the door as the other people kind of run off and more of them started to come behind you, especially if it was like another enemy in the area. If there's like multiple coal heads like running in one location, you're probably going to die and your friends are going to die if they don't watch them immediately. um I think they are a cool looking enemy, and it's quite fun that when they run over you, you have the coal head insignia, so to speak. Is like your head is just gone and is replaced. The scare factor, okay, if you're on the run, I'm gonna say that's a 10 out of 10, because if nobody knows where they are and they're just roaming around and you're not really paying attention to the environment, you're going to probably die. It is what it is. It's what's on the chopping block. Their scare factor also can be heightened from that regard, so I think it can go up to about maybe an 8, depending on a good day, if you're swamped in the corner. As for, and I say it depends, because if you're watching them and they're still and they can't do anything, then they can't attack you, so that can kind of go down to like a 5 if you're dealing with competent players who know what they're doing and you get in and out. Getting out is probably the hardest part, because yeah, they can move if you're not watching them. It kind of reminds me of those puppets from Resident Evil Village with the DLC, and they sort of just walk, move, and run if you're like looking in their direct location or not. It just depends on what's going on. Funniest moment where I died is definitely the one where I decided not to watch one, and it started to run amok, and I think one of the teammates got really mad because I was not looking in the general direction. But I think it was a slime that was like coming right behind me, so I had to move one way or the other. It was like, I want to die to the slime or die to the coal head, and that's my experience with them. Ren Ben, how about you? What do you think of this enemy?
The coilheads are definitely a scary enemy. I think if you're like, my friends always hear them before I do, and the number of times that like I'll just be minding my own business trying to get scrap, and then all of a sudden I'll hear and I'm like, oh, it's a coil head. Like the number of times that's happened is more than it probably should, given the amount of hours I've put into this game now. But they're definitely one of the scarier enemies. I would definitely give them a 9 on the scare factor. They're not as scary looking. It's the way they, like you guys were saying, the way they move, the fact that you have to keep your eye on them. And they, like, what actually upped the scare factor for me was the first time I actually did see one move and saw how fast it is, and like the way it moves, like you said, Ren, it's really similar to those marionette creatures from Village.
They work the same too. It's
Annoyance.
the same thing. It's like if you're eyes on, eyes off, they will move around. And when there's multiple versions of them, it's a hard time.
And if you're playing the Brutal Company mod, for example, you're inevitably going to end up with like 2 or 3. Like if you see one, there's almost always going to be 2 or 3 more on its tail. Like I've seen my friends get cornered into a dead end room with like 3 of them. I also found out the hard way. Here's a funny death for you with these. I found out the hard way that if you hit them too many times with a shovel, they'll kill you. It was 3 times, by the way. Because one of my friends had hit him and was like, ah! I was like, oh, that's funny, because they didn't die. It looked funny. So I was like, I'm gonna try that the next time I played. And 3 hits and they kill you. But annoyance, I would say there is a bit of an annoyance factor, especially if you end up finding them when you're by yourself, because it's a lot harder to keep an eye on them. And like if you get to the front door, you have to get just the right angle where you're still kind of looking at them, but you're also able to get that, the indicator that you can open the door, and then, or you just have to turn your back and hope that you get it fast enough before you die, which probably is not going to happen. Thank goodness for teleporters, though, because your friends can teleport your body back with the spring coming out the neck.
All right, next up is the circuit bees. I've never encountered this enemy, so I don't think I have. Are they the bees that have the electric stingers, like after you pick up the hive?
Yeah, they're
okay.
the ones that are around the hives.
Okay, so I've seen them. I'm gonna go real quick. I've died to them about, I want to say, once or twice. It's only if I say the danger kind of comes into the equation if you have a hive around the ship, because you also have to climb the ladder, and for some reason it takes like kind of a while, and by the time you get up there and the bees are like on your tail, you're probably gonna get zapped. So there's been moments of I want to say it's been moments of weirdness and also slow players, but nothing to the point of like, oh, if they spawn immediately, I can't get around them or whatever. I just leave the hives alone and they won't bug me. So I would say the scare factor is kind of like a 2, because it's only if they're triggered that they can do something to you, and the annoyance factor, if they are spawned out and if you're trying to get through the environment, it can go up to like a 7. I can't talk about how cool they look. They're friggin' bees. I just want to kill them all at this rate, so that's kind of how I feel about it. As for funniest moment, the only one I can think of was when friggin' Austin got like zapped and he didn't know that the hive was there under the ship. So I was kind of,
oh no,
I was kind of laughing at that, saying that I don't think that anyone knows that a beehive spawned under the ship, but it was like on Brutal Company anyway, so they kind of messed with the placements in the first place.
That was so cursed.
So I was like, I'm 99% sure that's not supposed to be there.
Yeah, it's not supposed to be there.
Well,
Boo!
I knew that pun was coming.
You walked right into it.
I knew it was coming.
Oh,
but...
just like you walked into that hive.
Oh man.
Talk about.
Well, I mean, Austin, it is your time to rate these demonic spawns of nature. What do you think of the circuit bee?
Yeah, I think I've only died to them like twice as well. Like I've usually I never try to bother them because I never have went for the hive because I don't really know how to do that, and I don't think it's worth it because I don't know how to do it. And I think the funniest death I've had personally was when me and Ren were trying to deal with loot bugs and we underestimated their numbers. So I just left him to die inside of the bunker, only for me to go outside and just get slaughtered by circuit bees. So
Oh yeah.
that's I felt like I had a bit of final destination there. I was supposed to die.
Someone picked up the hive and took it to the ship, because from what I remember, I think if you do get the hive, it counts as loot. So someone picked it up, and I think because of that, all the bees just started to swarm like near the doors, and that's why when
Oh
you went
no,
out,
the
yeah.
hive was at the door actually.
Oh well, that's worse. I don't know why someone left it there. I thought someone took it for the ship.
Nope.
Oh, well, you have those random deaths too, where it can be caused by teammates, so that can count as pretty funny. But
Yeah, it was definitely very funny, but man,
CJ, it is your turn. What do you think of these fearsome bees?
They are kind of, as you said before, they are more annoying than scary. I can say from personal experience though is that maybe just because actually no, probably it's just a skill issue, but do not go for the fucking hive. It is not worth it. You are going to get your ass handed to you.
Yeah, I think it's just
live and let live, you know?
go into the like interior doors and get all the stuff from there. I think it's more worth it than trying to pick that up for loot. Ren Ben, how about you? Have you experienced any of these bees?
Oh yeah, many times now. And I agree, they're not worth going for. The only time I found it's worth going for the beehive is if you have some kind of mod on where you have extended stamina or infinite stamina, because those bees are moving faster than you are, or your stamina is going to run out before you get to the ship. But yeah, same as you guys were saying. Like, I find them less scary and more just annoying. Although they have definitely scared me when, like, you go around, say you're on like offense or something like that, and you go around a corner and you're like, oh god, there's a beehive here, and then you have to run away really quick. Excuse me. But they're more annoying, I'd say, than scary. Although I did have a funny death the other day where we had gotten a beehive and we had set it on the side of the ship, so it was like on the railing, so we could just go, somebody could run out and grab it once we started taking off. And I didn't realize that the game physics were a little wonky, and so I was like, oh, what, why am I getting stung? I was getting stung through the wall of the ship. And then I said to my friend, I'm like, hey, look at this, look at what could happen if you stand too close to the wall. And then I died. So yeah, probably one of the dumbest deaths I've had in that game.
See, that's when your friends want you dead and then they pretend to be your friend, just like mimics.
Oh god, don't get me started on the mimics.
Oh, I hope. Yeah, they are later in the questions, but oh man, that's something that we're also gonna have to bring up too. But moving on to the Earth Leviathan, this is the giant worm enemy that will show up, the sandworm outside. So CJ, have you encountered the Earth Leviathan before, and what do you think about it?
I have encountered them exactly twice. One time, I didn't hear about it to find out it was even an Earth Leviathan until after the fact, because I just barely managed to avoid it. Lost as hell outside of the ship at like 11 p.m. And the second time, it was me and the only person that was in the lobby with me. We got just chomped up about 15 seconds after actually getting into the map through just the worst possible luck. I was trying to tell Missing, dude, you need to get out of the circle, or before the worm gets us, or whatever the hell I said. And I didn't even get to finish my sentence before the worm had already gotten us both.
Yes, the worm is so gigantic enough that, and I've seen this happen too on someone's video, not in a session, but the worm could actually eat a giant, a forest keeper. So it could take like 2 people, no problem, maybe 3 people, maybe more. I'm gonna go with my experience on the Earth Leviathan. I've seen it like 3 times, and one time I avoided it because there's a strategy where if you see the ground shaking beforehand and you jump, you might manage to narrowly avoid it. Then there's the idea of getting eaten, and I've had that happen to me twice over, where the ground shakes, I don't know what the hell's going on, oh wait, I'm dead. It is an enemy where definitely if you aren't paying enough attention to surroundings, when you see that earthquake, you're probably already toast, unless you're very lucky and you just jump ahead of time. It can be avoided. Is it scary? I would say so, because again, it's like a split-second decision. If you don't make it in time or you're not moving, then you're pretty much dead. So I would say scare factor is probably like an 8. Annoyance factor probably is like, I would say a 7 is reasonable. If you're not paying attention, it's a 7. But if you are paying attention, you're moving, you're getting out of the way, it's not really that big of a deal. Funniest moment where I died probably is when the earth giant got eaten and I saw it. And there was another one where we were playing, and I think it was on planet Dusk, and not only did I get eaten by one, but I believe that it also ate one of the dogs. So it was a little bit of friendly fire there, which is why I was screaming in the recording. I was like, I swear the dog died, the dog died. So that's what I think of the worm so far. What do you think of it, Austin?
Yeah, I honestly don't have a lot of experience with it. I've only encountered it once, and that was also the time where I died to it, and it killed me so hard that my game like completely froze. So yeah, I would also say they're about like a 8 in fear factor and 7 in annoyance. Like, I just don't really know much how to deal with them. They are big and scary and pink.
Definitely try to take the hint that if the ground shakes and you see just dirt, just jump, because it seems that that's the most effective way to get out of the way when they rise out of the ground. Ren Ben, are you back yet by any chance?
Yeah, she's back.
I am.
Okay, cool. What do you think of this question? What do you think of the earthworm or earth leviathan?
So I've only encountered it a few times, but the Earth Leviathan also has the honor of being my very first eclipsed moon death. I was playing with some friends. It was literally the first time I'd ever picked up the game, and they were like, "Oh, we're gonna go to a moon and it's eclipsed," and everyone else is like, "Oh," and I'm like, "What does that mean?" And so I jump out of the ship because I didn't know what eclipsed meant at the time, and all of a sudden, the next thing I know, I'm dead, and I'm like, "What the hell happened?" And they were like, "Oh yeah, an earthworm, a giant sandworm swallowed you up," and I was like, "What?" And since then, I've seen it a couple of times, but I've been fortunate enough to not have been close enough to have been killed by it again. So that's my experience with them. They're kind of scary because they don't pop up often enough that you get used to the earthquakes. And I think a lot of friends I've played with have never seen one. So when the earth starts shaking, they're like, "What is that? What is that? What is that?" So I think it's one of the one, I'd probably give it like a 4 on the scale for scariness. Just because it's one of the ones that it does have a little bit of a scare factor, but it's more in that you forget what it is because it doesn't pop up very often.
Yeah, it's like one of those surprise attack enemies where by the time you see the dirt, you're already dead before it's too late.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Next up is the eyeless dog, which is the dog that if you make noise, then, well, it's gonna draw to your location. So, Ren Ben, what do you think of the eyeless dog?
Like I love how you said if you make noise, and I literally said to myself, I was muted, but I said to myself, I said, "Oh, you only see it when it makes noise?" Because so I've encountered like so many times have I died to this monster. It's a funny one because not only is it triggered by if you make noise, but literally if anything else around you makes noise, they will flip out and start attacking. They have no qualms at all about coming running into your ship and killing you. They can be, I think that's kind of what gives them a little bit more of a scare factor to me. I put them in a 6 or a 7 because Like you could literally just be crouched in your ship and not doing anything, and something that you might not have even heard will just set them off, and they'll come running in the ship and drag you out, and then, well, now you're dead and you lost all your scrap. They are definitely, I would say, an annoying monster because there's so many of them, especially if you get an eclipse moon. They can be very, very annoying. But there are some really fun things. I mean, like they're also, I've tried to run away from them a few times with 0% success, but I've tried.
0% success.
There was an attempt.
There was an
attempt.
Well, I guess it's my turn. I don't like these enemies because I guess maybe it's the brutal company that's taking over, but the fact that if there's like 2 of them, you're kind of fucked. You have to. Now, I mean, granted, you can be quiet and get around them, but you can't be too close to them. If they're on red alert, someone makes some noise, you're pretty much in for a disaster, a bad time. I mean, they look cool. They ain't got no eyes, big ass teeth, running around, making the strangest noise you probably ever heard. When you hear them roar, it's one of those things where it's like, okay, I got to go because I'm trying not to get eaten in one shot. And the fact that they can also come in the ship, once again, it's a very interesting enemy to watch out for. That being said, I would say the annoyance kind of goes down to a 5 because you can be quiet the whole time, and if it's not a lot of them, you can easily get back to the ship, no problem. As for scare factor, I would put that up to a 9 because, again, if you don't see them coming and they blindside you, or there's a lot of them, then again, recipe for a disaster. You don't want to be in that situation at all. Austin, what do you think of the eyeless dog?
Oh, I've definitely had a fair share of run-ins with them. Quite a few deaths, and probably the most terrifying is when they get into the ship. But usually when they get into the ship, I see someone else die, which I thought was really hilarious. But usually that's when I die, and they are just immediately, I just get filled with dread. I'm just constantly crouched, completely silent, and I'm just thinking to myself, please, please leave me alone. Just they are definitely a, like, in terms of like how much it makes things tense for me, I'll give them like a 9 for fear factor. And for annoyance, I would say they're probably around like a 7. Like they can only be really, like, really troublesome if you are, like, you're being silent and then there's something else that triggers them. And yeah, aside from that, they are definitely something that you do not want to, like, underestimate. They can and will kill you, and they are, but like, you can dodge their attacks, but they are fast. So that's something, like, oh god. They are definitely one of my most feared enemies in the game.
I also think if you're running to try to get away from them, that's also indicator of noise, so that's something you got to be careful by.
Yeah, but usually when I'm running, that's when they're already alerted to my presence. So
oh yeah, that's the only way to get out of there.
I do have one thing to add. There's nothing more terrifying than if you're on Titan and you just want to get down the stairs and you could see the dogs coming up the stairs at you. They will climb the stairs, and it's terrifying.
I think I saw that when we were on a modded planet, so the dogs can indeed use the stairs, which, I mean, you don't want to be there. So the first thing I do is I take the fall damage, I jump off so I don't have to deal with them, because I would rather take that than to be one-shotted by them completely.
The giants will climb the stairs too.
Yeah, I saw that too, and it didn't end well, but you know what? We're gonna get to the right next. But CJ, how about you? Any thoughts on the eyeless dog?
For me, they are basically just some of the meanest facets in the game because I play on a mechanical keyboard, and thus even the slightest input means I am making a sound, meaning they know where I am, meaning they are going to run at me and just eat me whole. And so basically, eyeless dogs are hell.
Hell on Earth. That's all you got.
Well, not on Earth because you're never on Earth in this game, but hell.
I mean, you can say hell on Mars, or I don't know, hell on Dine, or you say something like that. But it's
I guess, but you're certainly not on Mars either. But yeah, you're just yeah.
hell on a random planet. How about we say that?
Hell on insert celestial body here.
It's our celestial body here.
There is one more thing I want to add about the eyeless dog, and it's the fact that they do not get alerted when you squeeze the plushy pajama man, which makes it the best item in the entire game.
I'm pretty sure though that I'm sure 100% it's got to be some dickhead out there that trolled and turned on the boombox, and I think that also alerts the eyeless dogs. It's a strategy.
It does.
It's a strategy I heard people say, but I have been not too tempted to test it out myself. Next, we're moving on to the forest keeper, forest giant, and honestly, I'm going to let CJ go first on this.
I will say that forest giants are very cool, but also a little bit of a letdown. Because, like, in the bestiary entry for the forest keepers, it simply talks about them basically kind of being like the brain of like a 3-year-old or whatever, and like the first time they get you, they're absolutely horrifying. But after that, it just gets kind of annoying because you just gotta call out to everyone, "Hey, there's a forest giant over here. Like, stay away," or whatever the hell. And that kind of ruins a little bit. But I remember seeing a suggested idea that if you kind of like stop all inputs and stop talking and kind of pretend that you're a toy, quote unquote, and hope that they hope that they just put you back down because they don't see you as an employee or whatever, which you might think would be a really cool idea to kind of again put a little bit more horror into it, and you wouldn't know because they would put your mouth, like test you and then put you back down. I just think that would be a cool concept to add.
I saw one cool thing that kind of occurred, and it's when an employee gets grabbed, you can use the teleporter to take them out of the forest giant's hands before they get devoured, which is a cool strategy. It seems they spawn the most on Val, which I fucking hate that planet anyway, so I'm not really surprised by that. As for what I think of them, they're cool looking, just like CJ said. When you see them from a distance, you're like, what is that? When you hear the loud giant footsteps, you're wondering what's going on. That you see one just sort of roam closer to you, and they have this little tiny like speed up process. If they see a player, they will speed up a little bit and try to grab them, but after that first initial jump scare, that's when it kind of gets, I want to say, predictable with their patterns, because once your friend calls it out and they see them and you hear the noise and everything, that gives you enough time to sort of like run away and not go in their general direction. It's only scary if there's like multiple giants, but if it's just like one of them you can clearly see, which is most of the case, you're not gonna really get killed by them unless you have no other choice between you and the ship, and it's like a very enclosed space. So I would say actually annoyance factor is gonna be kind of like a 3. I don't think they're that annoying at all when you know how they work, but scare factor when you're in a situational environment, enclosed space, it's hard to really get around. I would say they're worse in a foggy level. If the fog is everywhere and you can't see anything, they're a lot worse. I would give them a 8 there. But if it's not and you can see them clearly on a planet, I would give them a 5 on scare factor. And any funniest moments, I think the funniest moment I had when Max left me behind to die and I got eaten by a forest giant, and he said something, I got Ren, and he used me as a sacrifice, and I said he was an asshole. I think that was the funniest moment that we had when I died to a forest giant. So next up is Austin. Any experience with these giant behemoths?
I've seen them quite a few times, but usually when I do, I'm already by the ship. So what I like to do is just completely insult it and treat them like pieces of shit because they kind of are. And it's made funnier with the fact that every time that I do it, they're always walking away from me, so they know that I'm hurting them. But yeah, they are definitely very cool. They give me some Shadow of the Colossus vibes, and like in terms of like fear factor, I would give them like Ren said, they're around a 5, and if it's like in the fog, it is definitely much more higher. Like in terms of like fear and annoyance. I've just personally like I don't think I've ever died to them actually. Like it's pretty easy to avoid them, like Ren said, just keep your distance and they just won't bother you. They're almost passive when you ignore them.
Yep, just don't get too close, and I think you'll be fine. But it all depends on planets where it's not like night or eclipse, which is kind of worse in that regard. But if you can see them in like dawn, is totally fine. Ren Ben, what do you think of these creatures?
I pretty much agree with what you guys have said. They're not terribly scary outside of maybe that first encounter. Although I did encounter one the other day on Dine, and what scared me about it was I actually like we were just running, and all of a sudden I saw the arm just come poking out of the side of like a mountain, and then the giant popped up, and I was like, "Oh my god, guys, it's a giant!" So that was actually one of the few times it's actually jump scared me recently. Um, they are a little annoying because you have to give them such a wide berth so that they don't sense you and decide to come after you. A couple funny moments. One was watching you get chased by them one time, Ren. Like literally, I was crouched and I just watched you go running, and the giant's just chasing after you with his arms out, like, "Come here, I need a hug." It was fantastic. Another time, I was playing with some friends, and we were playing Brutal Company, and we had dogs and giants, and we managed to get up to the top to that level on Titan where the main entrance and the fire exit are.
Mhm.
And we're like, "Oh my god, there's a giant down there." And both my friend are like, "Oh my god, a giant." And I turned to look at my friend, and there's a giant on that ledge slowly putting my friend in its mouth, and I was like, "Oh my god." And I think if I remember right, I jumped off the ledge and died. um but there is something almost comedic though about the slow way in which the giants put you in their mouth. It shouldn't be comedic, but it is somehow like oddly funny the way it's just so slow, and it's like you'd think they just go, "Oh," but nope, they go slow.
I
um
I just equated to them getting a human hamburger, and I call it a day.
yeah, I remember you calling it that before.
I also, I guess I'll add this to funny. I also seen it has to be a mod, but there's also like super giants, like giants even bigger than these, and I've seen one of them eat the smaller one, the forest keeper, and I'm just like, how in the fuck does that happen? Like, I don't understand. Someone programmed that in where they could eat the smaller ones and just they turn into like weird tree bark or something, and I laughed so hard when it happened. It's hilarious.
I remember that, and it was like leaves just fluttering down, and I was like, "Oh, that makes sense. It's really pretty. Thank you for killing that for us."
It's pretty amongst all this death and devastation. But this next creature is definitely one I think I've only seen once, and that's the ghost girl. So as far as I know, when you see her, she'll start marching to your location, and if she gets close, your head will basically come off. I've only seen it one time, and I think I've yeeted myself out of the room by the time I saw it. Scare factor is probably a 10 because it starts talking to you, and when she says, over there, look over here, I'm like, I don't need to be here right now. I'm sorry, I'm gone. So I remember everyone heard it, and I just left and went outside because I'd rather take my chances with the lightning outside than dealing with the ghost girl. Ren Ben, what do you think of the ghost child? Have you seen it or no?
So I personally have not seen the ghost girl, but two friends that I play with quite regularly always seem to be her favorite targets. It's either one friend or the other friend. and they absolutely cannot stand this enemy because she like my one friend, I came back to the ship and I was like, what's wrong? Because they were just standing there like with their head down, like facing the wall, and I'm like, what's wrong? They're like, the ghost girl is after me, I can hear her breathing in my ear. So the scare factor is pretty high with the ghost girl, I'd say, because she's coming. Apparently, if you don't look at her or you don't acknowledge her, you can kind of avoid her. She's still probably going to kill you, but the scare factor seems pretty high with her because it's happened multiple times to them, and they get freaked out every time because, like you said, she talks to you, she breathes in your ear, she's like, hey, come here, look, and you're like, look. The nice thing is she does seem to mostly just spawn on the big moons, which does make that a little easier and slightly less annoying, but she's definitely a scarier enemy because they decided to go ahead and throw the creepy child factor into the game.
I also love how the official files itself say there is no creature file on record. So it's just like it's completely non-existent to the lore of Lethal Company itself, and they don't even know what this is, which makes sense, but I just thought that was hilarious to point out.
I like that. I actually really, really like that.
What about you, Austin? You've seen the Ghost Girl before?
Honestly, no. I don't really have anything I can really add on that. She does kind of remind me of the twins from The Shining, but yeah, that's all I can really add.
I have a feeling if they could put more ghosts into like later updates, and it'll make it 10 times more freaking scarier if they do that.
They would definitely make a Shining reference if they could.
Yeah, it's like, come play with us or something. I would be like, bro, what is that? Like, I don't. One thing about horror games is when it comes to a ghost enemy, I do not like when they talk in your ear and try to like mislead you to a location. I know that's their purpose, but it scares the hell out of you as a player. It's like, yeah, that's the worst thing you could possibly see or hear. CJ, what about you? What do you think of the Ghost Girl? Have you seen them?
I have seen the Ghost Girl all of one time, but that's because I remember reading that it can only target one person at a time, and so I don't really have anything to actually say on the Ghost Girl other than yeah, I definitely can see the Shining comparison, and that actually yeah, no, that's pretty much it. Just yeah, I don't have anything else to say, but I can definitely see the Shining in them.
Yeah, and I think if they decide to up the ante on enemies like this, it can make the game even more scarier. So definitely scare factor is pretty high up there, but annoyance, I did not have time to assess the situation because I already got the hell out of there. I was gone. Next is everyone's favorite Yippee bug, the hoarding bug that we will see in the environment. You take its loot, start chasing you, attacking you. What is your experience with the hoarding bug? And I will go with CJ first.
The hoarding bugs are great. They are friends, especially when you get the Yippee. Just don't try to steal from them because you will get your Jordans creased.
Jordan's creased. Okay, that's a great one. Actually, I like that. I encountered them plenty of times. At this point, they're like a common creature. You're gonna see them one way or the other. It's not like the other ones, like the Ghost Girl, where you barely see them. Once in a lifetime, you're gonna see one of them. And as far as I know, you take their loot, they get very aggroed. And it looks like to me they're almost like transformed to a degree. Like they just get a little bit bigger. They start standing up and then they start swatting you. I was just like, what the hell is this? Okay. So they definitely have beat me up in the corner a few times. They have killed me a few times too for taking their stuff. But relatively, if you don't touch anything near them in terms of loot and they go another direction. We had situations like that before where they went another direction and someone closed the door and I grabbed their stuff from them. So they could be tricked, baited even to other locations, but if they are angry and on top of you and you're on some stairs or something, you're probably gonna get hit a lot and die, which is what happened to me a lot of times. Funniest death was when I got like combo between a slime and a hoarding bug, and I had the Yippee mod on, so all I kept hearing was Yippee after getting my ass kicked, and I was just like, okay, This is too ridiculous for me. I need to get out of this game immediately. And I was sort of crying to getting my ass beat by a giant bug. Austin, what about you? Any experience with the hoarding bug?
I've definitely encountered them a couple times, and I did mention earlier that me and Red did try to, deal with them, but we completely underestimated them, and I just left Ren to die, and I thought that was really funny. But they are, like everyone said, they are pretty much friend. As long as you don't like steal from them, they are just super chill, and it's just every time I see them, even if I don't have the mod, all I hear is yippee. So that's basically how I feel about them. They are friend, and as long as you just don't steal for them, they are chill.
One of those things where the mod also made action come to life, because I don't know anyone who memes on them without saying yippee, even if the mod is not on.
Right.
Yeah.
Ben, how about you? What do you think of these dastardly bugs?
I love them. They are one of these and the tulip snakes are my favorite monsters in the game. I love the Yippee mod. It is my favorite mod. Like if all the other mods broke and as long as this one didn't, I'd be happy. They're not terribly scary. They're not they can be annoying if you want to steal their shit, but otherwise they're really just cute. Funny death that I have is I had three of them. I had found three of them, and I was like, "Oh, you're so cute! You're so cute!" And they're just going yippee, yippee, and like doing that little shaky thing that they do. And then I made the mistake of trying to grab the cookie tin that one of them had in their claws, and all three of them wombo comboed me to death.
Wombo combo?
They just straight up. They just looked and said, "So you have chosen death."
Oh, that's exactly what happened. Like I went to get it and they literally all started, because like when they go to kill you, like they spin around you, and I had all three of them spinning around me, but they were saying yippee, so it was also very funny and cute. But they're I like these bugs a lot. They're one of my favorites.
POV, you forgot to pay your taxes.
POV, you came to the wrong neighborhood. That's exactly what happened to me.
I don't care who the IRS sends.
They send a yippee bug out to get your taxes.
Feels oddly appropriate to send a yippee bug out for that.
Yeah.
But next up is the slime. So the slime enemy is the slow moving green tinted slime that usually is in the interiors. What is your experience with them? I guess I will go first. So honestly, it's slime, so it's not really scary or intimidating looking. It looks like, I don't know, some random monster blood just on the floor, inching to your location. Because they are very, very slow, I can't say that they're super annoying. I would give the annoyance like maybe a 4. It only goes up if they get you on a place where you barely can run and move anywhere, and that's when the pain starts coming in, because I think when someone just leaves them unchecked, they get their most dangerous factor there, especially if you're running away from something else. I said it before, I got comboed by the loot bug and this at the same time, which led to the funniest death ever when I jumped off a railing from both of them, and I decided to, say I don't need to live on this planet anymore. Fuck this, I'm out. And that's exactly what happened. So not really too scary. I would say scare factor is like a 1, but annoyance factor can go up from like 4 or 5, even more if they catch you in the corner. And that's my experience on the slime. What do you think of them, CJ?
The slimes are actually just kind of cool. They are very much an annoying enemy to like face, but they just vibe.
Yeah, they just sit there and go really slow, and I think that sort of kills their scare factor a lot. But any other opinions on the slime, or you just say, hey, they're vibing, they don't bother me too much?
Yeah, it's just kind of vibing.
Okay, we can go with that. We can go with that. Austin, how about you? What is your experience with the slime?
I think they were actually the first monster I ever ran into in the game, and yeah, they are honestly probably the least threatening enemy in the game. I think the only time they can really be a bit of an issue is if you end up running into a room that you've never been to and you can't really find a lot of exits. So like any way to go around and the slime is the only one that's like blocking your path. So I feel like that can definitely make it a bit intimidating, but aside from that, they're like a one in terms of scare factor and like if they're like blocking the path like I said, they would be like around a 5 in terms of annoyance, but aside from that, they just pose no threat really. I've never seen anyone die to it.
Ren Ben, what about you? You ever died of some slime?
Many times.
Nickelodeon
Really?
slime?
More times than I want to admit to, but they're definitely not scary. I definitely would put them at a 1 or less for scare factor because like Austin and CJ have already said, like they're just vibing. They're just slowly inching along. The annoyance factor for me is higher because they like to camp doors. Like if they get to a front door or an exit gate, like they like to just sit there. And which is why I've died to them so many times, because I'll forget that they're at one of the doors or I won't know they're at one of the doors. And like one time I was playing and I was like, oh, okay, I'm gonna go, and I had noticed that there was a slime coming towards the door, but I was like, oh, it's probably moved on now. And one of my friends goes, you know, they like to camp doors, right? And I was like, oh, okay, as I was going through the front door, and then immediately got caught by the slime and died. And I was like, oh, yep, they were right. uh So to me, it's just really annoying how they can camp doors, and they're very good at trapping you in places where you can't get past them. I have seen people get past them if you're in a big enough space where it can come in. It's not endless. For some reason I thought they were a lot bigger than they are. They're not terribly big. You just have to be in a big enough room to be able to get around them.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's sorry, go ahead.
Oh no, I was just gonna say, I've noticed that going back to the entrance, and if no one has contained them, that's when they're the most annoying, because they'll just sit there not moving, and it's like, I want to get out, but there's something behind me. So I think this enemy is the most annoying when combo with another person chasing you, because it just ramps up from there. They're not scary, but it's just a pain in the ass.
They're really good at if you've got something else chasing you, like I'd probably say I've also encountered them, like you have a coil head on one side of you, and then you have got the slime. It's like, okay, do I want a coil head death or do I want a slime death? Which one do I want more? I don't want either, but which one do I dislike a little bit less?
Slow and
I feel
painful.
like the slime would probably be a lot more terrifying if there was a mod that turned it into the slime from Dragon Quest. Like the little smiley little blue kiss thing.
Yes.
Oh, dude,
Like,
I don't think I want any smiling slime in this game at all.
it would,
Yeah,
it would
that is a
definitely-
please no.jpg right there.
I really like that idea. I like that idea a lot.
That should be a mod. That would make me say more about it than I already did.
It's like you're scary because it has this look like chibi looking face, but oh
Yeah,
man,
but because it has like pretty much no texture, it just looks very bland.
yeah, that's kind of what I think too. It's just green and kind of blue, and that's it. So I wish it was scarier to a large degree. But we have an actual scary enemy next, and this is the Jester, which is, I 100% believe, yeah, that is the Jack in the Box enemy. So Ren Ben, you go first. What do you think of the Jester?
The Jester to me is can be pretty scary because it'll just come, like you'll be minding your own business on one of the big moons, and all of a sudden it'll just like come la 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 and walk up to you and start going do 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 do. It's like, ah, shit, gotta get away. I do like some of the mods that exist out there. I think can't remember who it was, but like somebody pointed out that there's like a Freebird mod, so it plays Freebird instead of the creepy child song. Yeah, this one is scary. The first time I encountered it, I was like, oh, what's this? Because I don't know why. I don't react to these things the first time for the most part with fear. I'm just like, oh, what's this? And then it killed me. And I was like, oh, that'll kill you? And my friends were like, yeah, this is a horror game, Ren. But anyways, yeah, so that's been my experience with it. It's just now ever since I got killed that first time, I just run. They're annoying. They're not terribly annoying, other than like a lot of the monsters, they like to camp entrances. So like if they're at the front entrance or if they're at the the fire exit, they do like to camp a little bit, and I'm not a big fan of that. But also at the same time, you can actually run away from it a little easier than some of the other monsters, so it's not terribly annoying. But that's been my experience with them so far.
I'm going to say that this enemy is probably a 10 when it starts to do the Jack in the Box thing, the little wind up toy. Now, granted, I mean, it gives you like some time to run away and get a strategy or run out of the building, because I think they are mostly interior roamers. But once the countdown ends, Jack in the Box is all wound up, and it's a giant massive like skeleton. This thing looks absolutely gnarly and crazy. It starts running after you really quickly. If it catches you, you're dead in one hit. It cannot be like killed as far as I know. So that's not a viable strategy whatsoever. I'm going to say the annoyance factor when it is spawned is probably like a 9. It has to be up there. Same for the scare factor. But if it is not popped out yet, I would say it's going to be like a 1, because you have time to get away and do what you need to do and get out of there. If you don't, then you're dead. So it's all about that timer factor with this enemy, which is why it's one that I really like so much. I think it looks cool and it looks creepy too. So that's what I think of the Jack in the Box enemy. Get the hell out of Dodge when it spawns out, otherwise you're going to die. Austin, what do you think about this?
I think I've only encountered it like 1 or 2 times. While I've never died to them, I do not want to die to them because they are horrifying. Like, they are insanely fast, probably faster than the dog, actually. And, like, the only way I was able to escape them was when I went up the stairs while I was going after me, and I jumped off of the, like, railing and went straight to the front door. Like, once they are active, they are probably the scariest enemy in the game because of that. Because now the entirety of the bunker is no longer safe. And every time it's running, all I can think of is Freebird. That's the only thing I hear when they're just active. So, yeah, I pretty much have the same feelings as you do with it, Ren.
I hate that people want music modded to this thing, and it makes it even worse. So when they start running around, it's just like, oh, why the fuck am I here? Freebird all of a sudden. It's like, oh. But yeah, definitely one of the most scariest enemies in the game. And a fun fact is, I believe once they have spawned, and I've seen a player do this where he jumped between ledges, if you have him spawned out and he continues to run, his speed will increase. So he'll be 10 times faster if you still are in the chase phase, which I think is a very, very extreme and scary concept when you really think about it. CJ, what about you? Have you seen the Jester Jack in the Box before?
Yes, I have. And he is well and truly horrifying because he always knows where you are and he infinitely can speed up. So the only way to not die to him is to just leave the factory. I guess more like the mansion. That's probably more likely where he's going to spawn. But yeah, I have had many days where we see the gesture. Even if we just started, we will just up and leave because we do not want to have to deal with that motherfucker.
Yeah, I was just like, that's one of the reasons why I don't like staying in the mansion for that long, because if you stay there, it's just more of a chance of either butlers or the jester spawning, and there's also brackens sometimes in there as well, which is a bad place to be.
And there's always so many coil heads in the mansion. Like they're just everywhere. Everywhere.
Yeah, that's one area I definitely do not like in terms of interior at all. It's one of the more annoying parts of the game. As for the manti coal, we're gonna skip that because it's just a harmless bird, so it does no damage to us. But we're gonna move on to an interesting one, which is the mass enemy. All right, so I've seen this before. Basically, what happens when there's a mimic? Mimics are company members with these weird sort of tragedy mask on, and they start to approach you more and more. In a dark corner, you probably think that's your friend, that's your ally, but when he starts walking in a very erratic pattern and doesn't listen to you, it's kind of game time, and it's basically time to run at that point. CJ, what do you think of the mimics within the game so far?
I'll say I've been very thankful in that I've never had to actually deal with one so far in my gameplay, so I do not really have any comments.
Okay, I'll go next then. The mimics, and usually everything coupled with mods is like awesome and fantastic, but I think the most scariest part is when your friend starts to talk through them and you swear you hear something and then they start walking towards you. So this is when they're around the area sometimes, or if someone puts on the tragedy mask, because we seen that happen before in the ship, where someone put on the mask and they can attack you and they'll spit on you. I was just like, what is going on? This actually happened to me when I think Burn put on the faux mask, and I was just like, okay. I turned around and I instantly died because he did it on the ship and everyone was screaming, Austin was screaming, everyone was like sort of losing their minds. So when you
remember that,
yeah,
like,
that's the worst, man, I'm telling you.
the thing is about that is that I don't think he put it on in the ship. I think he already had it on when he got in, because I remember like we were using the teleporter, and when we teleported him in, he already had the mask on. Like, oh hey, that's a cool little mask. What's I honestly didn't know what it was. I
Oh,
just
that's
thought it looked really cool that he was wearing that. And then I saw him dart straight to Ren and just vomit blood. I'm like, what the fuck? Like, I was just horrified by that.
yeah. Considering of which, like, what are your thoughts on the mimics entirely, Austin? What do you think of them?
I think that, like, even though I think I've only encountered them once, but it left such an impression on me that I think they are probably like a 10 in terms of like fear factor, because you don't know if they're like normal or not. Like, you can't figure that out, especially if, they're not really responding to you. So you just have to talk to them and hope they aren't having mic problems.
That and I think the worst I've seen was when they start running at you, just like you see them, you're talking to your friend, like, slow down, what's going on? Tell me what's going on. Wait a minute, why are you not stopping? Why are you not slowing down? Oh, you're
Yeah,
not real.
what the dog doing?
Yeah, what the dog doing over there? When I saw
I'll do it.
when I saw 5 of them, I was just like, there's no way. And when they're unresponsive, you just turn in the other direction. It's one of the most like scariest things I've ever seen in this game, like by far. Ren Ben, what do you think of the mass enemies?
I agree. They're one of the scarier enemies because especially if you're using the in-game mic, it's not always terribly reliable. And so the number of times, like especially because like I'm looking and they love to spawn on Artifice. Like I've noticed Artifice and any of the big moons, Dine especially, they love to spawn on there. Like just yelling back and forth at your friends going, are you real, are you real, are you like, trying to get a response out of them. And sometimes the mic doesn't always work and you're like, okay, I got my shovel, I'm ready. If you're a real person, I'm sorry if I kill you, but like like, yeah, their fear factor is quite high because you can't always tell at first if it's your friend or not. And the fact that they can sprint on top of that. And they just tend to multiply more and more and more and more. Even if we've noticed, they'll multiply even if they haven't necessarily killed everybody yet. And that's what's really freaky is when you encounter, like, I remember one time I was walking around and I encountered a mask that was dressed just like I knew I was dressed, and I'm like, oh god, like guys, there's masks. Fun, not necessarily, not a death, but like one of the funniest yet most terrifying things I've ever seen was we were all dead except for one of our friends, and they were on the roof. And thank God they didn't climb the ladder for the ship, because she just kind of hung out on the roof. And like, I was turning the camera and all you could see were more and more masks, like climbing up and down the stairs. This was on Titan, so climbing up and down the stairs, running and sprinting. You could hear them going into the ship and looking for somebody. And then when she finally was able to pull away, the ship pulls away and they come off of the ship, and there were 5 masks waiting inside the ship for her if she had gone in there. And it was just like the scariest thing I've ever seen in that game, because those things just will not give up.
Yeah, they don't, and I don't know if they stick around after they vomit on like a player, or do they like go away? They
stick around, they multiply, and whoever they vomited on is instantly a mask.
Oh, okay, yeah, because I remember like when Burn vomited on me, and I think when someone also did it to Tolkien, they had like Tolkien's helmet. It's like the same person, except they were a mass enemy. I was just like, "Are you real? Oh no, you're not real. I'm fucking out of here." Like they can be one of the scariest enemies in the game when multiplied.
They have jump scared me so many times. I have screamed at those monsters so many times, probably more than any other monster in the game.
All right,
understandable.
Yeah, that's 100% understandable too. I see there is a creature called the mass hornets. This is mostly the butler bees. We talked about them with the butlers, so it increases their scare factor, so we're gonna skip that one since we mentioned it already. But now it is time for the nutcracker, and this is one of the enemies that will stomp around, usually in the mansions, and he has a shotgun. And if you see him and he sees you, he'll pull out that shotgun and he will blow away any company members. What is your experience with the nutcracker? We will go with Austin first.
I don't think I've ever actually run into them. Honestly, they definitely look really creepy though. Like, I mean, nutcrackers in general are really horrifying, but like, I feel like just seeing one approaching you with a double-barrel shotgun, that would make me just, nope, I am not dealing with you today. Especially after seeing the render of them just having an eyeball come out of their mouth. That is also a big nope. So, yeah, that's all I'm really gonna add about that.
I'm gonna add my 2 cents. So they had that weird like transformation with the eyeball in the mouth. I thought that was creepy. Not the most scariest thing in the world, probably because I mean it's a giant nutcracker with a gun. So the first thing I'm gonna think to myself is, oh, this is kind of hilarious looking, until he pulls the trigger. I would give it like a 6 on scare factor, and annoyance level is probably like a 9, because it has that gun. I had moments where I didn't know this, but the prompt can appear where you could try to take the gun out of the nutcracker's hands, and for better or worse, I tried it once and I died to it. So it's not a good gesture to try to take the gun out of the nutcracker's hands. I think that was my funniest moment as well, because I tried to steal his weapon and he decided to steal my life, which I died on the floor. Everyone's like, oh, where's Ren? It's like, oh, he's dead because he got shot. But if you kill it, you get a nice bonus. So it kind of goes in tandem, hand in hand. Like, is it really worth it for the gun? I think that it is cool to look at. It's cool to see, and it can be those tense moments where it's like, what is the strategy? What am I supposed to do? how am I gonna run around it? You can run around it as well, and there is like a detection mode that it has, but I also think because it spawns like less, it only spawns a lot on rend from what I can see, then you know, you don't see it that often as much as other enemies that you'll see commonly. So I'll say it's a definitely cool enemy. You know, all bets are off.
It definitely seems to be a high risk, high reward kind of enemy.
Oh yes, if you want that gun, you're gonna have to either try to take it, which you could die from it, or it could be some other means. But I do like the fact that when you do get it, you could also just shoot other enemies, which is also pretty cool. It's not a lot of enemies like that in the game where it has a weapon and you could take it for yours if you decide to kill it, or you know, try to snatch it, which is cool. CJ, what about you? Have you encountered the Nutcracker so far?
No, not really. Whenever I play, which is very rarely, we tend to stay away from the mansion because we're just not good enough to really be able to handle it.
That I can totally see, because I think when you get into the mansion, it's just so many weird spawns. And I think it gets worse too the longer you stay, which is, I know it's common for the whole game, but I think it gets like extremely worse when you're inside interiors for like way too long, because then everything starts coming out. Reverend Ben, how about you? What do you think of these enemies?
They're definitely, I think Austin hit the nail on the head with the high risk, high reward. Um, I have a tendency to just run away from them, which usually means that they shoot me and I die. But I know that if you do get close enough for them, as you found out, Ren, their kick is a one-hit kill. But they're definitely, they're not, I don't know if they're super scary. I'd probably put them at like a 5.5 for scare factor. Because they're so loud and they're clomping around and they're very unmistakable. Like once you know what the sound sounds like, you're not gonna forget it. I'd say they're more annoying than scary. Like I'd put their annoyance at a 6 or a 7, because they do stalk a bit. Once they know you're there, they are very good at following you, which is annoying. And probably one thing that can up the annoyance factor even more is, well, they will not specifically target monsters. They will hit monsters, which, like I said, I had that situation where we were in a room with like 6 butlers, and a nutcracker came in, killed all the butlers, and then you've got 6 things of mask hornets chasing after you. So that really upped the annoyance factor. It can work to your advantage that they kill the other enemies, because you can bait them into killing the enemies by putting an enemy between you and the nutcracker. But if they kill the wrong enemy, you're kind of screwed. So yeah, they're a cool design though. It's kind of, I like the eyeball because I like a little bit of body horror. I think is kind of fun. They're not an enemy I would have expected in this game, and so I kind of like that about them.
Yeah, it seems like though when they kill other enemies and it's less beneficial to your needs, it gets kind of worse that way, which is it's not really good for you and your company. You're gonna get sucked out of the lethal company engine by dealing with them for extended periods of time. But we're gonna skip right on down to the snare flea, because we already talked about our annoyance with the bees already, so we're gonna skip that and go to Mr. Centipede. Now, I've seen him a couple times before. He likes to wrap around your head, suffocate you to death like a pillow, and say goodnight to your teammate. There are ways to get around him, which will be discussed, but I want Austin to go first. What do you think of the snare flea?
The snare flea. Now that's one that I believe I've only encountered once, and it completely freaked me out because it was basically like a mix of the face hugger from Aliens as well as the head crab from Half-Life. Because I just remember minding my own business, and suddenly something just drops onto me on top of, from the ceiling, and I'm just freaking out. I don't know what to do. I'm just running around in circles pretty much from when was watching Ren's video when he was spectating me, and I'm just running around in circles, just screaming like I'm a chicken with its head off. And eventually it just dropped dead. And the other time I've seen it kill someone was probably the funniest thing for me, because as soon as the body dropped, it hit the landmine and immediately killed the snare flea. And it was just so funny because it also completely cut my camera to another player right as the explosion went off. So that definitely got a laugh out of me.
I'm gonna go next. Honestly, this thing is, again, it is creepy if you definitely don't like bugs. I'm not a fan of like centipede looking enemies with the small tiny legs. It just, that freaks me the fuck out, man. But they will wrap on your head and you will die. Now there are ways like hitting them with a shovel. If your teammate just whops it with a shovel, it will decide to not attack anymore, and it'll fuck off for a bit. But I feel like this enemy will really suck if you're mostly isolated by yourself. You don't know where you're going, and maybe there's like a landmine on the ground. Because my funniest death was I got caught by a snare flea and I didn't know where to go because it obscured my vision, and there was a landmine right beside me, and I got choked out and died, and the snare flea like blew up into a million pieces. That is by far the funniest death I think I ever seen with this creature, and I'm so glad I got it on video, because when people were wondering what happened to the flea, I was like, oh well, he's fine, he got disintegrated by the landmine, so I got my revenge in the afterlife. I would say annoyance factor, if you're alone, is probably an 8. You're probably going to die. 8 or 9. I'd say probably 10 at that point if you're by yourself. If you got friends around you, you're gonna get it smacked off, no problem. So I would say it will decrease in that factor, and scare factor is probably like, I'll put it at 5. I think that's fair. I think that's fair, and they look disturbing if you hate bugs, and I don't like centipedes, so I would say I'm pretty creeped out by it. CJ, what about you? What do you think of the snare flea? Have you seen one?
I have seen snare fleas quite often, and they are the ones that I probably have like the biggest beef with, because they are part of why my stall response is so fucked, because something about them just makes me completely freak out for half a second, even if they don't actually fall onto my head. And if they do come on my head, obviously it's just never good. Although there exactly somehow was one time where where it fell on my head and lashed onto my head, but for some godforsaken reason, it dealt no damage to me. I still had like the scary music and like the obscured vision and muffled and dropped my items and everything, but I just wasn't taking damage. So I just kind of had to awkwardly, blindly wander around the facility, screaming out to my teammates, saying, "Hey, can somebody help me? I have a thing in my head, but I'm not dying." And instead, because none of them had a shovel, I had to find my way to the front entrance, which then killed it when I walked out, which was the only one that actually even survived that night. Makes no sense as to why the hell I survived, but I did.
I think it also muffles your volume as well when you're getting suffocated.
Oh yeah, to an insane degree. Yeah, it was pure luck that I made it through that.
Yeah, because the only way my friends saw me, because they didn't hear me, the only way they saw me is by random chance. So it also has that factor in there as well, where it's like the more you're isolated, again, the more it kind of just messes you up. But Ren Ben, it is your turn. What do you think of the snare flea?
They are definitely pains in the asses. I've died to these multiple times. They are, I still have not gotten the hang out of seeing them on the ceiling. I usually hear them, and by the time I hear them, it's too late and one's wrapped around my head. But they're not, I don't know that I consider them scary though. I'd consider them more annoying than scary. I know like probably in terms of funny deaths, one time after I'd learned that if you can get out of an exit door with a snare flea on your head, it kills the snare flea and it lets go of you. So I had one on my head. I was close to the front entrance, so I was like, all right, I'm gonna try to figure this out. And I didn't have any of my friends with me at the time, so I was like, okay, gotta figure this out. So I was like kind of inching towards where I thought it was, and I had just reached the door, and had almost got the door open when it killed me. Which sucked, but it was also kind of funny. But scare factor, I'd probably give it like maybe a 4. And then for annoyance, I'd give it a 6 because they're definitely a pain in the butt. But yes, that's my experience with the snare flea.
All right, we are going to move on. I'm gonna skip spore lizards for the sake of convenience, because honestly, I've seen these things and I don't think they ever attack me whatsoever. I just saw them like humping a corner, but I have seen them before with the purple tails and everything, so I'm just gonna skip right past them. Next we're talking about the thumper. All right, the friggin' thumper. I'll go first on this one. Okay, the thumper is annoying. I can't stress this enough because of the very mobile activity, how it likes to roar and chase you all over the place. I feel like this enemy is one of the enemies, I think everyone will agree, where when it spawns in the most inconvenient place of all time when you're in the interior. It never fails for me. It happens to me all the time, each and every single time. It comes from like behind or side or something. I'm just like, where is this fucking thumper coming from? And why is it trying to like molest my face while I'm trying to get out of here? I would say annoyance factor is, I'm gonna put this at a 10. I feel it deserves it. The thumper's at a 10. They say it can be killed, but I've never killed one ever. By the time I try to hit it with a shovel, I'm mostly dead. I'm going to say scare factor, when it comes out of nowhere, is probably like a 9. And how it looks kind of cool and nasty looking. It looks like a chewed off donut. I will say that. But in terms of the thumper, I do not like this enemy at all within the game, and it's probably one of my more annoying enemies. Ren Ben, what do you think of the thumper?
Chewed off donut killed me.
I'm sorry, I just had to describe it somehow.
They are definitely annoying. They're very fast. I have actually killed one with a shovel before. I've killed a couple of them now. They are more killable if you've got 2 people whacking away at it with a shovel, because it takes a solid like 4 or 5 hits to get it. But they are killable. They're definitely annoying though. I don't think they're as scary, only because, much like the Nutcracker, they're quite loud, and they announce their presence with sound really before you can necessarily see them. However, they do come out of nowhere sometimes, and have definitely jump scared me a few times. So I definitely put them. I put them probably at like maybe a 5 or a 6 for scare factor. Annoyance factor, though, definitely a 9 or a 10, because they move so fast, and that means, like, especially if you've got a situation where the fire exit and the front entrance have spawned close together, they'll go back and forth between those, or could just be that there's 2 thumpers. Could be either way. But they'll go back and forth between those very quickly, and they're really good at detecting when you've come back in, because like I've gone out and like, okay, it's gone away, now I'll go back in and they'll hear or like the second I walk in, I'm like, ah shit. So they're definitely high on the annoyance factor. But that's been my experience with thumpers. Lots of stupid deaths, but no one stupid death sticks out.
Yeah, same for me. I don't have any. I think I'm just simply dead. I died quickly to them. It's not any funny deaths. The only ones I could think of is probably jumping over the railing, and after that point, I just accepted my fate. Austin, do you have any opinions on the thumper? What is your experience?
I think they're probably the scariest enemy for me in the game, honestly. I don't really find them annoying. I find them more terrifying because every time I'm in an enclosed space and I'm all alone, because either I don't have anyone around me or it just killed the only person that was with me. So, yeah, it is definitely up there as one of the scariest, but I've never really died to it. I feel like I should have died to it, but I never did. And yeah, I don't really have a whole lot to say about them other than they are very terrifying, and every time I see one, I just want it to be quick and painless.
Quick and painless.
But yeah, like I it's weird because they seem like they're really difficult to deal with, but they're actually pretty easy to just juke.
Like
So
I've
yeah.
seen people like strafe and hit them with a shovel, and that seems to be the most viable strategy. It is like Ren Ben said, if you have two people with shovels, you can kill them like rather quickly. Someone's gonna eventually kill them even if they hit you. So it seems like teamwork makes the dream work for that.
It does, but I will say one other thing is you are definitely still gonna, one or both of you or however many of you are doing it, you're still gonna take a lot of damage.
Yeah, they
Oh
really
yeah,
hurt.
definitely.
They definitely hurt when they bite you. CJ, how about you? What do you think of the thumpers so far? Any experience with them?
A little bit. They are again just kind of mimicking what Austin said. They are absolutely fucking terrifying. Uh, Especially like again, if you just kind of stuck in the bowels of the factory, and then you just see one darting at you at Mach 12. It is almost pants shitting at points.
It's like that Deadpool quote. Oh, I think I wore my brown pants today.
Exactly.
But I don't like this enemy at all whatsoever. It's just personal preference because I would rather deal with Brackens than Thumpers because I feel as though they have this push and pull of being like aggressive and passive, whereas Thumpers are like always on your ass 24/7. So I kind of hate that about them. But we're moving on to the last enemy of this podcast to be described, and that is the tulip snake. And I have never really encountered this enemy, so I'm going to instant skip, but I'm going to move to Ren Ben, who probably has. So, any opinions on the tulip snake?
I love these. These are my absolute favorite enemy in the game. They are really cute. But what actually is part of what I love about them is they're more or less they are a deceptively non-lethal enemy. They basically all they'll do is they'll run around, they're gonna attach themselves to your head, but that's not gonna be what hurts you. As long as only one is attached themselves to you, you're fine. But if you get 2 or 3 or more attached to you, so they will actually take off with you and you go flying up into the air. And then they drop you and that's when they kill you. But they're just really fun. Like every single time I play, I end up going, I don't die every time, but I love just having them attach themselves to their head. The first one always is on top of your head and it like looks down at you. Like you can see it on the top of your view, like your view. And I'm just like, oh, hi. Hello, little friend. You're so cute. All right. Oh, there's more. Yay. Let's take off. And they're a really fun addition to the game, I feel like. Scare factor, not really any scare factor. I'd put them at like a 2 or a 3. Only because the first time that one of them attaches itself to your head is probably going to make you jump a little bit. And I mean, I don't find them annoying, but I can see where other people may find them very annoying. So for me, the annoyance is like a 2 or a 3 because I actively go look for them now. But I know not everybody thinks it's funny to get picked up by monsters and dropped from a high space. It's really funny when they attach themselves to your head and you're in the ship and then you're just like floating sideways in the ship because they can't actually get you outside to take you higher. It's really funny. But yes, I love these.
Just like if you ask mom and dad where the stork came from, it's like, well, maybe the tulip snake like dropped you off. But
I like that.
I suppose you guys have not you remaining two have not seen like any of the tulip snakes so far or have any opinions on them, right?
Nothing.
Yeah, I have never heard of these until now, and honestly, the way that it's been described, the first thing I thought of was Gibby falling from iCarly.
This might be a weird like sort of comparison, but I just think of like Fall Guys where you push someone off the ledge, except you're in like midair suspended and your body just like gets plummeted. It's so weird, but like something picking you up and just dropping you is already annoying enough as is. And I do remember there's like these small little alien babies that we saw in mods that will attach themselves to you. So the fact they can give flight, and if multiple attaches to you, that seems like it could be kind of annoying, especially outside. Well, you know what, I'll add this little part in with the old birds. So Ren and Ben, what do you think of them so far, because we have not encountered them at all in the new stage?
So they're pretty cool. They're a little terrifying. For some reason, when I first heard the name Old Bird, I thought they would literally be birds. But no, it's the old bird, like it's an old bird, like an old airplane or something. But they are actually quite scary because as long as you don't get seen by the big light on their head, you're fine. The minute they see you, they start shooting rockets at you. You can usually run away from them and they lose interest very quickly. They're also great on an eclipsed moon because they will kill everything else. I've seen them kill giants. I've seen them kill dogs. I've seen them kill hawks. They're fantastic for that. They will also just kill you though too. So
I like they go on a kill frenzy. These robots will kill everything in Lethal Company, but you are also a prime target, so you have to watch out for that as well.
But
It's
they are
like
really cool.
It's like that meme where it's
Basically,
like,
they're an armored core.
Yeah, I agree with that.
it's like that Wikipedia meme where it's like lists of massacres. This list is incomplete. You can help by expanding it.
Yeah.
Oh, that's pretty great. I honestly can't wait to play the new update because I have not gotten around to it yet. I only experienced one planet so far, but I have not seen any of the old birds or any of the newer enemies like the butlers. So that's going to be pretty
Yeah.
fascinating when we get around to it. But you know, I guess that is the end of this podcast in terms of like all the creatures that we covered. You know, pretty fun time all around. I'm sure they're gonna add a lot more with the updates because they already added like quite a few. I seen planets where robots will attack you, so
Yes.
that is something that I was just like, okay, now we have a Terminator just kicking our ass, so great. But we're gonna do our outros here and wrap this up. So you can find me on Twitter at rentoperative_. You can find me on YouTube, Renegade Operative. I've been playing a lot of Xbox Series S since I recently just got that console. So RoboCop Rogue City was a pretty enjoyable live stream. I would say check that out and see me throw criminals for the sake of peace and arresting them because, you know, police officer. But next is Austin. So where can we find you on social media?
You can find me at my YouTube channel, Cool Austin DT, as well as my Twitter, Red Barrel is God, and yeah, that's basically where I'm most active, especially on my YouTube channel. So yeah, that's where you'll find me.
Next up is Ren Ben. Where can we find you on social media?
So you can find me on Twitch, Ren Ben on Twitch. I actually just finished a 4-week collaboration with a whole bunch of different streamers playing Lethal Company. So yeah, we played a lot of Lethal Company recently. You can also find me on Twitter and YouTube as Ren Ben, and you can also find me on TikTok as Ren Ben because I screwed up my own name on there.
You know, usually that's kind of how it starts. Like I hate it that my name was not taken before, and then when I decided to have this one, finally someone just took it on Twitch, and I was just like, god damn it. That's like a troll finally got me, but at least I had the last laugh and I took all of it before they took all of it, so that's pretty good.
Congrats.
Good.
Congrats, I said, for
Yeah,
getting something over them.
It sucks when people take your names. I just hate that. It's like I finally have a solid name I can think of. Oh wait, so many people already have it. Now I feel isolated. But I caught mine just in the nick of time. But CJ, where can we find you on social media?
I'm quite easy to find. All of my socials are at comeycj_.card.co, fully spelled out because Card does not support any special characters in their links.
All right, and we're gonna sign off on this one. Swell time. I think we should do more monster discussions. So I gotta sort of think of something where enemies are kind of annoying or something like that. Maybe more franchises as we go down the way. But this is the Infinite Ammo Syndicate signing out. Watch out for those baboon hawks, and we will see you guys next time. Later.